Welcome, everyone. This is the DFS Bum. All right, we have Saturday night here, Showdown slate. The LA Lakers going against the Denver Nuggets. So let's talk about it. Game 5 here. If you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. We're checking these stats and tracking them all the way through the finals. So LeBron James, he's coming in here at 16,000 on Fanduel, 12,200 on DraftKings, averaging 55 points overall for the playoff series, about 49 for this conference finals. Came back out, another good solid game. It continues to be where you really have that top spot from FanDuel standpoint, and I suppose even from DraftKings, but FanDuel, it's definitely being dominated by between James, Davis, and Jokic, and then that next spot to down the top spots the two times point multiplier. Next spot down, the All Stars 1.5. That's where we build that pool. It's going to have James, Davis, Jokic, and Murray. Again, if you go back there and look at those guys, that's what we're talking about as far as having is going to dominate those. Davis is coming in, averaging 50 points overall for the playoffs, 46 for this round, 15,500 on FanDuel, 11,800 on DraftKings, so a little bit cheaper there. Again, good solid ball with him. He had really only one poor game. That was game 3. Outside of that, he's always been above 50 points. LeBron had been a little bit up and down, but again, of course, they're always in play. Jokic, he's probably out of those three for the most part, I would say, and seems to have the biggest, I think, like kind of maybe like bust potential. 15,000 on FanDuel, 11,600 on DraftKings, but averaging 47 points overall for the playoffs, 42 points for the for this past series, or this not past series, this current series of the conference finals. Last game out, 35 minutes, only 35 points. Before that, 42 points, 61 points. In the first game, 30 points. So seems like he very rarely has poor back-to-back games, so wouldn't be surprised to see him bounce back. Something to be said potentially on FanDuel's standpoint is to maybe even, it's just getting to the point where it's potential to have some really, really big ties here, and so you're trying to maybe look for ways to maybe make yourself like a little bit unique, and I would imagine that he is going to be a little bit lower owned at the very top MVP spot. Now on DraftKings, 11,600, so you can save a little bit of money there, but really at the end of the day, it's going to only equate to what, about like $300 between Davis and Jokic. So normally, I think I'd probably lean towards Davis, I think, in that standpoint. But yeah, and then that kind of takes us down here to Jamal Murray, 13,500 on FanDuel, 10,000 on DraftKings, 43 points overall for the playoffs, 44 for this conference finals. Coming off a 46-point game before that, 57-point game. That was just a monster game. That happened to be the one game that LeBron blew up with 64 points, but normally at 57 points. I mean, hell, I think that's actually been the second highest. I think that's the second highest, or maybe it looks like Joker had 61 points. But anyway, normally 57 points would probably get you that top spot. And he's not in that as much, too. Only 10,000 on DraftKings, so that's definitely a guy there where you probably maybe get your best boom for your buck, so to speak, as far as what they're averaging. Particularly, when you look at like this series, Joker's 1,600 more compared to Murray, and Murray's been outscoring him. So anyhow, that's a guy there that I could see probably being pretty popular pick with DraftKings. Then just try to fill up as much as you can with these other guys, then work your way down. So, all right, Grant, he did have that one monster game, 35 points 3 games ago, and it's almost kind of to some degree predictable. He fouled it up with only 21 points. He played 42 minutes, but again, like we always, or I always joke, it's just like, yeah, if you got like like a couple points for or like a couple percentage points for minutes, like he'd always be like chalk. But he just doesn't produce for as much as he plays. Now in DraftKings is only 6,600, which is much more reasonable. But yeah, he had that one good game, and his price shot, I think he was like 8,500 and went up to 11,000. And it's just, he's probably, now I guess here's the one thing, there is potential to sit there and work him into some lineups because I doubt he's going to be highly owned. Reality of the situation is like it's just you can't really fit him. I mean, you could, but to try to like work him with one of the top three guys and say Murray and him. Um, but again, I don't know. Like I talked about this the last time they played. If you go with each series, that first round, he had almost 30 points game one, and it was just shitty after that. I mean, he in the low 20s was the best he ever did. And then going in round two, game two, he had 31 points, and it was just shitty after that, and before that too. And then this game, 35 points, game three, and then after that. So it's just kind of like he does it once around. That's probably it. So I'm not really necessarily planning on him. He's going to be for me just in my utility spots. Like fuck it, man. I'm not going to put him in that third spot on Fanduel. DraftKings at 66 though is definitely considered, and again, just because he's playing minutes. That's the one good thing about him. He's out there, so it gives him opportunity to get some, obviously, versus a guy that's only playing 20 minutes. Rondo 10,000 on FanDuel, $8,000 on DraftKings. He has been averaging about 25 points for this series overall for the playoffs, about 28. Come back, that's really a pretty solid series here. His minutes have been pretty right around 20, other than 2 games ago he played 29, but points he had about 27, but was round up 28, 19, 28, and then 26 and a half right there. So just good solid play. I have had him set up to be in that third spot on FanDuel, and more so just because of how dominant he was that last round. And yeah, it's I don't think he's really there's like the winning lineup, the top lineup. I don't think he's been in that spot yet. But I definitely think he has the potential for it for sure. Speaking of that spot, Michael Porter, 9,500 on FanDuel, 7,200 on DraftKings. That's another guy that you could see come into there and going to that third spot. I don't even mess around with him getting up into that four or the 2-time and the 1.5-time multiplier on FanDuel. It definitely would be a way to make yourself stand out, but I just think the reality of the situation, he just doesn't have that much potential to even get like north of 35 points. I just don't see it happening. It's kind of almost like a miracle for him just to get above 30 points. So anyhow, he could certainly be worthy of taking that spot. Last game out, 25 points. Before that, 22-18. First game, he had 33. So you just see him he's got potential. There's not a lot of scorers outside of Jokic and Murray there, and he is kind of basically the guy off the bench that's not afraid to throw up some shots. Danny Green, came back that last couple games, actually last 2 games, really poor. 21 points and 21 minutes, 6 points last time out. Before that, 20 minutes, 10 points. First 2 games though, man, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde here. 23 minutes, 24 points, 28 minutes, 28 minutes and 30 points there. $9,000 on FanDuel. The typo there, it's only 4,600 on DraftKings. So he's just a guy that, who knows? Between like Caruso, KCP, and him, chances are, it seems like one of them usually ends up going off. Though Caruso hasn't really played all that well this series. KCP though has been pretty solid. His price finally went up. So before we get to KCP, we'll just talk about Paul Millsap real quick. Really struggling this round. Not that he was lighting things up to begin with. Only 24 minutes, about 15, 16 points overall for the playoffs. 23 minutes, 17 points, 8,500 on FanDuel, $6,000 on DraftKings. It's just out of all the mid-tier players, and he does have potential here and there to throw up some big numbers. So it's unfortunately it's easy to write him off. And as far as a cash lineup, I wouldn't even mess with him, that sort of thing. Or if you're just going to do it like a handful of lineups, like I say, even with me doing mass entries, I have a hard time playing them at that price tag. So all right, We have KCP coming in here. I mentioned 8,500. And he's been playing really well overall for the playoffs. He's been averaging 28 minutes, only 17 points. This round, about 30 minutes, almost 22 points. So I kind of thought like that first game when he had that 26 points that, that was that. And he's been, though, right around 20 points since then. Um, at that 7,500, he was just one of like the more realistic guys to kind of work in. So I saw last time out he was like 44% owned. And it just worked out where like you could use him. It was basically like locking on him, and then you could still have Murray and then two of the big three guys. And so I'm kind of glad that they changed that pricing on him just so give a little bit more variety. I mean, that's fucking crazy, really, to think about it, right? Like that KCP would have 40% ownership in a single game slate. That just kind of tells you, like on FanDuel, at least with how it was set up, that it just like you got to get a little bit more diversity in certain price ranges with guys to get the more diversity in those lineups. Coming in at 5,400 on DraftKings, I think that's maybe a little bit pricey. But anyhow, all right. So here's a guy that I had built in where I mentioned I thought he was going to come on burn my ass, and I got real lucky and I put him back in, and I'm glad I did. As Monty Morris, 8,500 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings, real cheap price there. And basically, I think kind of what's happened here is Gary Harris has been playing horrible, and Morris is coming in. And this last game out, for example, I mean, he played 27 minutes, and Harris only played 18. Harris has just been a hot mess, averaging only 25 minutes and 7 points for this round. And yeah, it's just something there where Morris, yeah, right in that second game, played 12 minutes at 12 points, but before that, 20 minutes, 18 points, 19 minutes, almost 17 points, 27 minutes, and 20 points. So be interesting to see if that trend can continue. So I would definitely keep him in mind. Gary Harris, like I mentioned, struggling mightily. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see with him. Going back last series, that last game he had 27 points, and then in game 6 he had 32 points. I think that game I went into overtime because he played 42 minutes. But really after that, and actually he was over 30 points in game 3, so yeah, he was playing pretty good that last round, and I don't know what it is this round. But anyhow, and even Torrey Craig is coming in there and playing minutes. Like he played 19 minutes that last game. So yeah, Gary Harris is starting to kind of, and before the thing with him too was ridiculous. He was like 10,500, so his pricing was just stupid. So it has come down a little bit. So that's the one thing maybe where with recency bias, it's just so easy to overlook him. But hey, he's down $2,000 now. And really, if you look at it, between Millsap, KCP, Monty Morris, like Kuzma, Howard, I mean, any of these guys, any one of them could, out of that grouping of guys, including really Danny Green, and honestly, with Porter in there, I mean, I think Porter and Rondo have got more of an upside. Grant is way overpriced, but that's kind of the one thing a little bit about that is like, out of that group of guys, like, any given night, you could see a guy come in there and like, are they going to throw up like 35 points or anything like that? Probably not. But, like them getting the low to mid 20s, and they're going to be into that top lineup. So kind of rounding it out, I guess, with them. We'll just look at their stats though real quick. Kuzma just been struggling mightily this round. 22 minutes, 12 points overall for the playoffs. 23 minutes, 17 points. I kind of feel like yeah, I think they were maybe expecting a little bit more out of him for this playoff run. Now there was some reports, I guess, of Anthony Davis, or not, like of Davis being I always say Anthony Davis, but Davis being questionable. And if that were the case, in theory, you'd expect Kuzma's minutes to go up, but I can't imagine that he's not going to play. So Howard at $8,000, definitely like that price tag. He came out and started. So McGee is another guy that's real easy to write off unless you wanted to make it more of that contrarian play. But he came out, gave you 22 minutes and almost 30 points. First game, he played 16 minutes, gave you 26 points. Between that, only 12 minutes and 8 points and 14 minutes and 10 points. So he definitely has that boom or bust, but he's a guy that is worthy of building in potentially to that third spot up there, in my opinion. Because, like I say, I mean, it's just look at it. He outscored Porter and both Rondo. So it kind of speaks to exactly what I was talking about with that. Now, he is the guy out of this group that I would consider in that third round, where I don't think like those other guys I really would do that. Um, and outside of this group, anyone that might get bumped up into that third spot, um, I had been playing Kuzma there, but it's just so freaking hard for me to even want to do that anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't really see it myself doing that tomorrow. I could see it being, yeah, I mean, there would probably be a lot of Jamal Murray, Rondo, Porter, and Howard in there. And you never know. I might have some sort of lineups where maybe I'll try to rotate some of these other guys just to make myself a little bit unique. But it'd be really kind of hard to rationalize getting too crazy with that stuff. Craig, like I mentioned, is going to be back in the lineup. Probably not heavily owned. Only 7,500 on Fanduel, 2,800 on DraftKings. Not super excited about him, but hey, if you can buy down and get him cheap like that, and he comes out and gives you like 15, 16 points, I could see that end up, being a very great situation. Now, here's the thing on FanDuel: Caruso 7,000 overall for the playoffs, 23 minutes, about 18 points. This round, 24 minutes, about 16 points. So I would probably think that Caruso would be like somebody I would prefer over Craig. Same thing, Markieff Morris. He only played 17 minutes that last game, 11 points. Not even hitting 10 points for this series. 11 points overall is really more like last series, I feel, where he's a little bit relevant because of the small ball approach. Now, given the way that this Boston-Miami series is going, I could see in the finals where it might be where like Howard and McGee are kind of like almost faded from that lineup a little bit, because that's kind of like the style that both Miami and Boston play. So it's not like I'm going to say to write them off completely for the entire playoffs, assuming this is, it's kind of, I guess, presumptuous of me to think that the Lakers will go to the finals. Nuggets, you never know. So anyhow, McGee, like I say, only played 5 minutes that last game before 8. It's just like, yeah, he's cheap. There's Dozier, Plumlee, but all those guys pretty hard to really want to throw them in lineups. And if you do, I probably want to throw them in a whole lot. And I guess, and again, if you're doing it, maybe it's just the idea that you're trying to make yourself a little bit unique and hope that they're low owned and that you might have a little bit higher payout on it. So anyhow, that is it, guys. I'll end up having another NBA video for Sunday. And then it looked like the Sunday night NFL game didn't look like there's really any good tournaments in there, so I probably won't even bother with it. I gotta imagine Monday though, there's gonna be some awesome ones, and it's just an awesome game with the Chiefs and the Ravens. So keep your eyes peeled for a Monday night showdown video. All right, guys. Good luck tonight. Kick some ass, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya.